Aloha, everyone. It says I'm live here. So I think I'm live. Sorry, I'm running a little bit late today. I was chatting with a potential client and I ran over. So I had to take a moment here and get everything organized and have a little sip of water before I got going. So, well, we have just got some hairdo going today, let me tell you. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to get my face out of my screen here now that you can see me, and we're going to get going. Today, we are talking about a subject that's getting to be popular right now. It's about time to get our bikini body ready to go for the beach. We're going to talk about weight issues and joint pain. All right. So if you don't know who I am, my name's Lisa Oreg, and I am the owner of Upside Down Pilates and Nourishment. And I'm the creator of the Joint Pain Eliminator program. And this is where I help women eliminate their joint pain so they can get back to living an active, fabulous life that they love. All right. I love doing that. All right. So today we're going to look at what is the number one misconception that no one else addresses in regards to weight issues. This is part of phase 3 of my Joint Pain Eliminator program. All right. So help me out. You can subscribe to the channel. You're going to hit the bell. And then if you click on all, when you hit the bell, you'll get all the notifications when I go live, when I upload a video, when I premiere a video. You can check me out on Instagram. And then you can also check me out on Facebook. All right, just to stay in contact even more. So let's dig into it. Many people suffer from weight issues. Now, this can be overweight issues. This can be underweight issues, right? We've got anorexia, bulimia, these other things, not digesting our food. This will cause an underweight issue. Many people have tried everything to lose weight. Or to change the condition that's keeping them underweight, but unfortunately nothing seems to work. And today I'm going to share with you the one thing that I guarantee you probably have not tried. Don't get too excited, but I hope you'll try it out. All right, so what are the misconceptions that we have about weight? Let's start there. So we have a lot of misconceptions. Everyone's tried everything. Everyone's got an answer. But some of the misconceptions that we have are that we take calories in and then the calories go out. If we eat less and exercise more, we're going to lose weight, right? You've heard that. Does that work? Did that work for you? Probably not, or you're not going to be watching my video right now. All right. So no, that is a misconception. That is a falsehood. That is only maybe part of the story. It may work for a couple people, but not a lot of people. It's a completely simplistic approach. And the human body is just not that simple, my friends. Absolutely not that simple. So let's talk about it a little bit more. Food comes in to our body and gets broken up, and then we absorb the calories. And the idea is that those calories come in, and it's how much we burn out that's supposed to balance our weight or create our weight. Calories in, calories out. No, it's incorrect. It's a myth. Anyone who's ever struggled with weight can tell you that. That is just, what are we going to call it? Fake news, a falsehood, a misconception. So what is actually happening? What is actually going on that is determining what our weight is? What do we not talk about? All right, we don't talk about the 40 trillion organisms in our gut. This, again, 40 trillion organisms in our gut. This is where the food is actually digested by the organisms. The food goes into our gut microbiome. The gut microbiome, those 40 trillion organisms do 90% of the digestion of our food for us. Yes. So the microbes, what happens is those microbes in our gut, they make the compounds out of what we ingest. And that actually changes what types of organisms are in our gut. All right. These changes to what the compounds are made, to what compounds are made by our bugs, and what bugs are more prevalent is what dictates our weight. It's not calories in, calories out. It's the compounds made by our gut microbiomes, and then what is more prevalent of the bugs in our microbiome that actually determines our weight and dictates our weight. Big paradigm shift. Big paradigm shift. So let me repeat that. We eat food. Our microbes digest our food. They create compounds, and those compounds help or hurt us, as well as dictate what other microbes are in our gut. That's it. Amazing. Okay, so that is the thing that no one is talking about. But we're going to talk about it a little bit more. So what on earth does that mean? All right. So here is a study that illustrates this concept. All right. It's the twin and mice study. All right. Let me see if I can explain this really clearly. So scientists took identical human twins that have the same genetics, but one of the twins is overweight and one of the twins is normal weight. Okay. Then they took sterilized mice. So to sterilize the mice, they give the mice antibiotics and wipe out their microbiome. And they did a fecal transplant. So they took from the overweight twin and gave that fecal matter, that microbiome, to some of the sterilized mice. And then they also took the mice from the normal weight twin and gave it to some mice. Okay. Now remember, the mice are eating the same food and they're living in the same environment. So the mouse who was given the fecal matter from the overweight twin began gaining weight and became overweight. And the mouse that was given the fecal matter or the microbiome from the normal weight twin, became a normal weight and stayed at a normal weight. Same environment, same genetics, same everything. One became overweight, one stayed normal weight. Now, that's pretty amazing. But there's more. So then they took and they wiped out the microbiomes of the two mice. And then they gave the normal weight fecal matter or microbiome to the overweight mouse. And then they gave the overweight microbiome to the normal weight mouse. Okay. And the overweight mouse became normal weight, and the normal weight mouse became overweight. So you can flip it either way. Absolutely. When I heard of this study, it was quite a while ago. I believe this was 2009. I was mind blown. Like, that is just not how we think about weight, is what's coming from our microbiome. And this right here shows you that you can manipulate your weight by what's in your microbiome. Okay. Amazing. So that is one study that's been done that shows this. It illustrates how the microbiome dictates weight. Another human case that we can look at is a very active, fit woman who never had weight issues before, but she did have IBD, so that's going to be like colitis, ulcerative colitis. She decided to get a fecal transplant to help with the IBD. So she had that, and that did help with the IBD, and she got better from that. But then she began gaining weight, and she had never had a weight issue before. So they went back and looked at the records of the person that she had been donated the fecal transplant from, and that person was overall healthy, except for they were overweight. So the donor was otherwise healthy, but that donor was overweight. And so then she got that fecal transplant, and she started to become overweight. So That's another instance that we can look at in information showing us that this is actually really what's going on. Okay. So, what is in the microbiome itself that is causing this to happen? Right? You're wondering what is going on here. That's crazy talk. It is crazy talk. It's new paradigm shifting information that can help all of us that struggle with weight issues. So, the big thing here is the presence of keystone strains. So, keystone strains are super important, and they structures within the microbiome that creates the structure of our microbiome. All right, keystone strains of bacteria. All right, so some examples are going to be Akkermansia mucin. Oh, I'm going to say it wrong. Muciniphila, Biobifidobacterium longum. You may have heard of that before, and Biobifidobacterium infestatus. So these are just some of the examples of the keystone strains that may be missing if you are having trouble or dealing with your weight issues. So let's talk a little bit about what happens here. So persons with low levels of the keystone strains, when you go ahead and that person with low levels, they're going to eat some food. And remember, some foods are worse than other foods. But what happens is the bugs that you have convert into things like ammonia gas, hydrogen sulfide, or other substances. And those substances create inflammation. All right, so they're going to create inflammation in your gut. Then the inflammation actually causes those little epithelial cells to separate, creating the leaky gut. And so then your gut becomes leaky. And then it creates something called endotoxemia. So things start to seep through, bad bugs, food particles, toxic substances leak through your gut into your bloodstream. That is what creates illness. And then in the bloodstream, it'll actually get into your brain. Okay, so then now we have lipopolysaccharides. We've talked about these before in our brain, and that creates inflammation in the brain. So this can disrupt the signal for you to stop eating. So this is how leaky gut can start to create that sensation where you just can't stop eating. You stay hungry and you just keep eating. This is one example of what can happen because of low levels of keystone strains that can cause you to keep gaining weight. You just keep eating too much because you never get that signal. Let's see here. Let's go to another one. Yes, I have my notes, my dear friends. Now, if someone has proper levels of the keystone strains of bacteria, this is what should happen. Your keystone strains convert food into short chain fatty acids, and those nourish our gut lining and keep our epithelial cells nice and tight so bad things can't get through. But inside of our gut lining, there are little receptors that the short chain fatty acids attached to. They're in our intestinal lining, and they're also in our fat cells. This triggers the release of something called leptin. You may have heard of that. Leptin tells us to stop eating. So if you don't get those short chain fatty acids hitting into our receptors telling us to stop eating, you're also going to keep eating. There's another way that we can have trouble with maintaining our weight. These short chain fatty acids also activate something called AMPK. And it says that food is here. It tells our brain, our body, that food is here and that we can burn fat. We don't have to keep burning sugar or carbohydrates. So it turns our body's ability to use fat as fuel on. So it's going to turn that on. So it literally makes you into a fat burning machine when the AMPK is triggered. Exciting. So there's another way that the good bugs are going to keep you at a healthy weight. And if you have bad bugs, that's not going to happen. It's not going to show up. Now, the other thing that happens, yes, I think I just said that. The low level keystone strain person does not get the AMP signal. And so that person stores food as fat, particularly around our waist. And we get that nice thick waist look because of our gut microbiome. All right. Now, that's just one example of what goes on in our gut microbiome that has to do with weight. Here is another example. There's something called energy harvesting. So this has to do with how many calories you can pull in from what you eat or what you consume. People who struggle with weight can pull in more calories from food because of their microbiome. And this is really helpful if you're in a situation of famine. But it's really interesting. These people can extract up to 200 more calories per meal than someone who does not struggle with their weight. So if you think about that, after 10 meals in a row, that's almost 1 pound of fat that doesn't get burned, but gets stored as our visceral fat, specifically around our waist. So that's another way through the energy harvesting. Now I'm going to give you one more example of how dysbiotic gut or lack of keystone strains can create weight issues. So the weight issues from the leaky gut, from the low keystone strain, mess up Ghrelin response. So the Ghrelin response is our hunger hormone. Ghrelin tells us we need to go eat. All right. So it's the same way that the leptin response is disrupted. Ghrelin is the signal that you need to eat. All right. It tells you that you're hungry. If when you eat, it doesn't turn off, like I just said, you keep getting the signal that you need to eat food. So then both the leptin and the ghrelin can be disrupted through the leaky gut. Again, through the inflammation within the brain that disrupts our how we think. So there was a study that showed this. There was a probiotic study, actually. They were studying probiotics, and they in this study they took young healthy people and gave them a 10,000 calorie meal, and then took their blood and they looked for ghrelin levels. And after they took their blood, the ghrelin had dropped just a little bit. They gave them a particular probiotic, which we can talk about later if you want, and for 30 days. And then they came back and did the same test. And after they gave the 10,000 calorie meal, they did the blood test, and the ghrelin had dropped in half. So prior to taking probiotics, it barely dropped. And then after taking the probiotics, the ghrelin response dropped in half. Pretty amazing to see how just a small change in the microbiome can make a big change within our body's response. Now you're asking, how does this relate to joint pain? There's a number of ways that relates to joint pain. But the first is that those low levels of keystone strain create the inflammation, causing leaky gut and endotoxemia. That one that stops the leptin response, and then the one that doesn't stop the ghrelin response, that same process is the same process that creates the inflammation in the joints. Okay, so when we get leaky gut, the lipopolysaccharides, bad bugs, food particles, improperly digested food particles go through into our body, and it creates autoimmune conditions. It creates overall inflammation, for such as rheumatoid arthritis. All right, so that's the big thing that happens. Now let's look at it biomechanically speaking, because this is like a double-edged sword here. Let's say you're overweight. If you start to lose weight, 1 pound of weight loss reduces 4 pounds of pressure in your knees. This is huge. So just if you lose 1 pound of weight, you're going to lose 4 pounds of pressure off your knees. Now, let's see what happens if you lose 10 pounds of weight. You're going to lose 40 pounds of pressure off your knees. Let's say you're 100 pounds overweight and then you lose 100 pounds, you're going to lose 400 pounds of pressure off from your knees. It's huge. So having even that 1 extra pound of weight or those 10 extra pounds of weight creates so much pressure on your joints, that's going to start to break down the integrity of your joints. And when you start doing that, it causes joint pain. And then that creates that vicious cycle of not being able to exercise or even move or get around because you have pain in your joints just from being overweight. All right. So the thing to remember is all of this I do discuss in my book. So if you want more detail on all of this, you can go to Amazon and order From Sick to Sexy. You can also ask me a question in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer if you have any other questions. But I know you're wondering now, what causes the gut microbiome dysbiosis? How does this happen? Again, all of this I cover it in my book, but let's take a look at it. Antibiotics. This is one of the biggest drivers of leaky gut, okay? And one of the biggest drivers of weight gain that we just don't talk about. So if you think about antibiotics, in farming, they literally give cows antibiotics because they know that it fattens them up faster by disrupting their microbiome. They may not know that it's disrupting their microbiome. I would assume by now they do. But they know that if you give cows antibiotics, they fatten up. For us, taking round after round may shoot up strains like our Clostridia or Klebsiella, and those types of strains, the gram-negative strains, promote weight gain along with joint pain. And you end up getting a new microbiome because these bugs come in and take over. So you may have been able to eat whatever you want up to a certain point, and then all of a sudden, you have to really watch your weight. Doesn't matter what you eat, doesn't matter what you do. You look at food and it just sucks onto your body. Well, it may have come from that couple rounds of antibiotics that you had to do, wiping out your good bacteria and allowing Clostridia or Klebsiella to come in and take over your body. All right. Now, the thing with, like I said, these bugs not only cause weight gain, but they cause other problems. They take control over your brain. So we've talked about this before. Your vagus nerve connects your gut to your brain and your brain to your gut. They take over that vagus nerve and they make you crave foods that you know are bad for you. They're going to make you crave those sugary foods. They're going to make you crave those high carbohydrate foods like chips or, any sort of, processed garbage in a bag that's, processed carbohydrates. They like those foods, so they make you crave it. Those are the same bugs that cause anxiety, they cause depression, they cause social isolation. Those are the same bugs, are the bugs that give you joint pain, and they're the bugs that make you gain weight, all right? Now, there are also, if you have the good keystone strains, those good keystone strains can make you altruistic, they can make you extroverted, they can make you comfortable, strong. Those are why we want to have those good bugs in there, because they give us all the good hormones that we need to be happy and healthy. All right. Another thing that disrupts our microbiome is glyphosate. Glyphosate is in Roundup. All right. Now, glyphosate was originally patented as an antibiotic. So it does all the same things that antibiotics do. To learn how this works, it's very interesting. Dr. Stephanie Seneff actually figured out that what glyphosate does is it doesn't kill weeds, it only kills bugs that are on, or it kills weeds, but it does it by, it doesn't kill the food or the wheat or whatever we're spraying it on. It only kills the bugs that will eat the wheat or the food that we're spraying it on. And it does that by making their intestinal tract explode. So it disrupts something called the shikimate pathway to do that. But our humans do not have a shikimate pathway. But what does have a shikimate pathway is our gut bugs. So glyphosate specifically destroys our microbiome, and That is 100% shown in the scientific literature. Go look up Dr. Stephanie Seneff. She just came out with a whole book on how that happens. So glyphosate, which is Roundup, which is sprayed on almost everything, destroys our microbiome, makes us fat, makes us have joint pain, gives us cancer, all sorts of crazy stuff. This is why we must eat organic, and we must get rid of glyphosate amongst many other pesticides. All right. The other thing that will dictate what's going on in our gut is our food choices. So depending on what food you decide to eat, those are the types of bugs that are going to live in your gut. So if you eat strawberries, certain kinds of bugs are going to live there. If you eat sugar and processed carbohydrates, you're going to get the bugs that like the sugar and the processed carbohydrates. So your food selection dictates what if you have your keystone strains or not. But that's only one bit. There are many, many, many more elements to this. Stress. Stress in your life is a huge contributor to what's going on with your microbiome. So there are certain fungus, virus, bacteria that know when you are stressed out, and they take over because they are opportunistic. They literally will just sit around and wait for your stress hormones to elevate. And when they sense those stress hormones elevating, they go in and they take over. And those are the same bugs, the stress bugs that make you crave sugar. So they send those signals up the vagus nerve and tell you to eat more sugar, more carbs. And then it turns into this vicious leaky gut cycle. All right. Here are some other things. I'm just going to list them off here. We've been on here for quite a while now. Lack of sleep disrupts your microbiome. Lack of exercise or movement disrupts your microbiome. Lack of being out in nature disrupts your microbiome. Lack of healthy sunshine disrupts your microbiome. Heavy metals, oh heavens to Betsy's, heavy metals turn your body into a toxic mess. So that is a huge driver of bad bugs coming in and taking over. And then, of course, our pharmaceuticals kill off our good bugs and our microbiome. So that's what I've got for you today. Now, the question here is, how do we solve the problem? And this solution is exactly what I do in my Joint Pain Eliminator program. The big thing we go in and do is help figure out what's going on and help balance the microbiome. So we got to go and look deeper and figure out if we have heavy metal toxicity, if we have mold toxicity. Are you sleeping properly? Are you getting proper exercise? We got to find your underlying drivers of what's causing the imbalance in your microbiome and start addressing it. Again, food is only one part of this problem. So food is only one part of the solution. Going back and thinking what we just talked about in the beginning about how calories in, calories out, that's what makes us fat or skinny, you can see now, no, our microbiome is impacted by all these different components. So all these different components come together, develop out and create a healthy microbiome or an unhealthy microbiome. And that is what's going to deliver, whether we're a normal weight, we're an obese weight, or even if we're underweight. All right. The anorexia, the bulimia, those types of things are coming from the disruption of the inflammation in our brain, being able to look and see how beautiful we really are just as we are. And I cry because I had anorexia for many years. I suffered from that. And I'm so, so grateful I don't have that close to that thought process anymore. But, as a young girl, having all sorts of problems going on with my gut, that was one of the symptoms that I had of my gut dysbiosis that I, really overcome. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Now, if you want more solutions on how to balance the microbiome, put it in the comments. I can come on and do another episode just specifically on how to balance the microbiome. Some of the best ways to do it are definitely go in and take a probiotic. Definitely go in, drink your broth. Definitely go in, eat your probiotic foods. Get rid of your heavy metals, get rid of your mold toxicity. There's Get out in the sun, get out in nature. Just being in nature, you get all those good bacteria coming into your body just by being in nature. Get off your pharmaceutical drugs. Avoid antibiotics at all costs. These are all ways to start balancing your microbiome. But if you want me to go into more detail, drop it in the comments below and I can do another episode just specifically going into that. And the Joint Pain Eliminator Starter Kit gives even more detail on how to start balancing your microbiome, losing weight, and ditching your joint pain. So if you look down in the description, you can download the Joint Pain Eliminator Starter Kit. Again, subscribe to the channel, share this with a friend, and below, comment on your thoughts. Did any of this blow your mind? Have you ever thought about weight or joint pain like this, where it's actually coming from your microbiome and not just by calories in, calories out? Eat more. Don't eat more. Eat less. Exercise more. Have you ever thought about it that way? And are there some changes you're going to make now just by knowing that it's not just what you're eating, it's not just how you exercise, but it's all these other elements that contribute to your health, your weight, and your joint pain. All right. Thank you so much, guys. I love you so much. You just come up with the best questions and the best comments, and you're the best supporters out there. So thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments what you thought. All right. Have a great day, and I will see you next week. Aloha.